Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Fan Behavior. I am Zoe, not joined by Hannah today. She's on vacation, but I am joined by our very good friend Neha. Neha, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm always happy to jump on and yap about everything F1.
You are the best. You were on our show earlier this year, actually, like the very beginning. We did a bonus episode about testing, and it was like audio only,
Yes.
like very much just a quick thing. And I was like, when I knew I would need someone to fill in for this episode, I was like, I have to bring Neha back on, not only because I love you and you're the best, but also because I feel like the people need to hear you talk about a race. Like you have information and data and everything that we're just not as qualified to talk about, but you are qualified to talk about. So I'm excited to get into all the things that happened today in Hungary with you.
Oh, I love nerding out, so I will happily nerd out with you, Zoe, as
I
always.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, well, just before we get into, I mean, obviously there's qualifying the race. We'll touch on all of that, but I wanted to talk about a few pre-race weekend news information that we got. So the first being Fred Vasseur has signed an extension with Ferrari. I don't know if it was just me, but when I saw the Instagram post, I was like, oh my God, he's been fired.
Oh, same. 100% same. That was such a cryptic, like three slide situation. And the first picture just being him, I was like, okay, maybe this is something else, but why did they do it that way?
With like official statement across the across the
Yeah.
picture. I feel like we all have PTSD from just years of seeing crazy stuff happen in Formula One that when I first saw it, I was like, oh no, something bad has happened. And maybe for some people, him getting an extension is something bad. Like we can get into that part of it. But for me, I am a Fred Vasseur defender. I love Fred, and I know Ferrari has had their struggles. And I know it isn't the best situation right now, but I don't know that Fred Vasseur is the problem.
I would agree. I think there's just a lot going on behind the scenes. And I also think that this year, they've made a lot of changes to the car, and I think that's in anticipation for next year. So I'm like, it's better to get all those growing pains, all those things out of the way this year so that when the new regulations come in, everything is good, things are sorted out, there's a little bit more clarity there. And I think that Fred has a good relationship with both the drivers, but then also provides that good culture everywhere that he's been has always kind of excelled by the end of the time that he leaves. So I don't know. I think he's great. I think he's a good leader of teams.
I do too. And I think you and I are both football fans, American football fans,
Yes.
and I feel like there's a tendency in football, it's really in any sport, like when things are a little rocky for fans to be like, fire the coach, like the coach needs to go.
Mm-hmm.
And like oftentimes, sometimes it is the coach, and sometimes that is the problem.
Yeah.
But oftentimes it's like there's so many other issues besides the coach, but the coach obviously is like the scapegoat in terms of
Yes.
like who they want out. So I feel like to your point, Fred has a good relationship with Charles and with Lewis, and I think we need to wait to see how 2026 goes before we make any rash decisions about Fred.
Yes, definitely agree. Because also, he's not the one necessarily building the car. There's a whole team there. And I think that that's a whole other thing that we can talk about, especially with today's race. And then we can
Yes.
go from there.
Exactly. The other piece of news, which we already knew this, but it was sort of officially confirmed by Max that he is staying at Red Bull for 2026. Now, I think, a lot of that had to do with the fact that his exit clauses, like he could no longer get out of his contract. So he's basically forced to stay at Red Bull, but he did say that, he's going to be with the team. I am wondering now, given how this race weekend went for him and maybe how the rest of the season goes, like we'll have to wait to see what happens with him in the future, but Max will be with the team for next season at the very least. And I don't know. I'm curious to see how that relationship and that dynamic goes over the next like 16, 18 months.
I completely agree. I think that Red Bull is in an interesting spot. Obviously, lots of change happening. We don't know their driver situation has been very much question marks for the entire like basically 2 years, let's say.
Yeah.
So right now it's very much okay, it seems like a rebuilding phase, or at least this moment of, all right, we're starting anew, things are going to be slightly different, and they're kind of going through those growing pains as well. So I think it's going to be good because Max is there to be a constant for this team, but who knows? Things can change so quickly. That car has been so up and down. I don't even know what to say about it.
Right. And like if next season doesn't go well for Red Bull, I mean, we all kind of know with these regulation changes, like if you don't come out right out of the gate, for the most part, McLaren is kind of proving that you can improve as you progress through a regulation change. But for the most part, if you don't come out as like a top contender, it's pretty challenging to then get to the top, like in that period of time. And so if Red Bull is like the fourth fastest car next season, Max, I think, will start looking elsewhere because he's in his prime of his career. He wants to, I think, obviously he wants to win more championships, more races, but I think it's smart for him to wait it out another season and just see what happens, and then he can kind of go from there.
Yeah, and also not even that they have to try to recover from the car, like the changes in the regulations for the car itself, but with the engine changes as well, that's
Exactly.
even harder to recover from. Because
Exactly.
if that engine doesn't start off in a good place, how are they going to recover? And with the whole, okay, Ford is coming in, I think that that whole partnership, depending on where it starts off, that's really going to dictate how things go forward.
Exactly. That's such a great point. There's a lot of change happening for them. So we'll
Yeah.
have to wait to see how that goes. This is just kind of an off, not, I mean, it pertains to what we're talking about, but who do you think will be in the Red Bull car alongside Max next season?
I think it's going to be Isaac. I know you hate to hear that with Yuki. I want to see Yuki on the grid. I don't know where exactly he would be, but
Mm,
I do think they're going to pull up Isaac from RB, and because I think they want to put Arvid Lindblad into that second RB seat.
I agree.
So I like, okay, they have to sacrifice someone, and I
Yep.
don't want it to be Yuki, but unfortunately, I do think it's
But
going
it's
to be
got to be
Yuki.
him. Yeah, because the reality is, and I love Isaac too. Like I love Isaac and I think Isaac is very deserving of a shot at the Red Bull, and I cannot fault Red Bull for wanting to put him in the seat. Like and Yuki can't really come back down to the junior
I
team.
know.
Like he's but because he's made that step forward, he just this is kind of it for him. So my dream for Yuki now is that he goes to IndyCar and he wins the Indy 500.
Ooh, oh my gosh, wait, I would love that. I was gonna say either Yuki to Cadillac or Yuki to Indy. I'd be so happy with that.
Yes, yes. If he can't get a Formula One seat, then I would love to see him. I've said this before. I want Zach Brown to hire him to be a McLaren IndyCar driver because obviously the content would
Oh
be
yeah.
extraordinary, and I think he
Him
would
and
be
Pato.
exactly. It just would be like you would have fans for the rest of time. Like they would have no problem attracting fans, me being that fan. Um, so anyway, we'll have to wait to see how that shakes out, but I tend to agree with you. Okay, should we get to qualifying? Anything else like previous
Let's.
weekend? Okay. So
I don't think
Q
anything else happened.
yeah, I was gonna say it wasn't really like super eventful. Um Q1, we have Alex out, which was kind of shocking. I feel like Williams' whole weekend was like very much like they were not involved in any sort of way this weekend.
Which is so interesting. I think that they're obviously trying to make their cars so that it's more adaptable to a lot of circuits, but they do tend to run better where there's more straight lines. It seems like they've been fluctuating a lot. I don't know. Sometimes it's just like really hit or miss. He started off FP1 really, really well in the first sector, and then it kind of just went down from there.
Yep. Yep. I know. Yeah, they were just very much, both him and Carlos were just kind of like an afterthought this weekend, which I feel like is unusual because they've done decently well like this entire season. We also had Nico out, Esteban, Pierre, and Yuki. Now, we kind of touched on him before, but like Yuki was only, I think, like a tenth and a half down from Max, which is like as close as he's ever been this entire season. But it still had him out in Q1, which is just so unfortunate. Because again, if you're looking at that gap, it's like a tenth and a half off of Max. You're going to get into Q3
Not bad.
easy. Like you're going to be right there. But the Red Bull just hasn't been good this weekend. And it was just like that was the difference between making it into Q2 and making it or not making it into Q2. And once again, he's just had another, it's been a disastrous season for Yuki. Like honestly, like if he had just stayed in the V carb, I think he would have had an amazing season. But him getting in that Red Bull has just been like the worst case scenario for him.
I know. I feel horrible because I do completely agree. Especially seeing how Liam Lawson has been performing, just that car seems to be a lot more compliant than the Red Bull in so many ways. And I think that Yuki would have, I'm going to say, I think Yuki would have been on the podium already. I
Okay,
think
I
that
agree with
that V car
you.
would have been on the podium.
I agree with you. I agree with you. I think the same thing. I think there would have been a race where he would have found a way to he would have at least finished like top four.
Yes.
That's my
Because
delusion.
I think there was a race where Isaac finished P5 or P6, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken, or
I think
qualified at least P5 or P6.
yeah.
So I think that Yuki is like, he's so fast. And especially because he knew that V carb so well, I think that he could have 100% been on the podium by this point in the season.
Yeah, it's been rough for him. Then out in Q2, we had Franco. He outqualified Pierre, which is like a step forward for Franco because it hasn't been the easiest time for him either.
Hmm.
Carlos, Lewis, we'll get back to him, Ollie, and Kimi. Let's talk about Lewis first because it has just been, and I know obviously
Oof.
you're a massive Lewis fan. I'm a Lewis fan as well. And it has just been really tough, to say the least.
Brutal. Oh my God. Hearing him talk about himself in such a negative way, I don't think we've heard that from him in like maybe ever
I was gonna
in
say
a like so long.
he's so positive usually, and he's so like trying
Hmm.
to stay, I don't know, optimistic and all of that. And to hear him say like I'm useless, I was like, whoa, like what? Where's the Lewis that I know and love?
Yeah. And for him to be like, oh, they should just switch drivers. Like that is like the bottom of the bottom. I think that so many of the drivers were just like in their feels this weekend, being so down on themselves. And I'm like, what's going on? Is everyone okay? Is everyone just like ready for break? Is that the vibe? Is it like, all right, summer vacation time, get me out of here? If that's what it is, then sure. But I don't think I've ever seen Lewis talk about himself in this way. And that was just, my heart was so sad.
It's been rough. It's been a rough go for him. He's had some moments of like I think obviously last week in Spa was like damage
Hmm.
limitation in a way, and he did
Sure.
well. And he won that sprint race. Was it in China? I think he won, and like
China,
he's
yep.
had some good moments, but over the course of the season so far, it just has been, I think, underwhelming. And that's not necessarily his fault. I mean, he's learning a new car, a new engine. Charles Leclerc is his teammate. Like that's no easy feat for anybody. And also we have to say, like he is 40. Like it's not like he's a 20 something year old young spry guy. Like time does come for us all. Um, but it's just not what you want to see for the 7-time world champion.
Yeah. It's like you want to see, I always say this about tennis players and stuff. It's like, okay, are you going to retire when your body is literally giving up on you, or are you going to retire when you're at the prime? And I get not wanting to retire when you're at your prime because what if some miracle happens, or what if you can get that other title, which I think is where Lewis is at right now. I don't think he's like completely out of it because we have seen moments of greatness from him. But it's like wet. It feels like something is coming, and I don't like that because him talking about himself like this, I'm like, I don't need to hear a retirement announcement anytime soon because I will burst into tears.
No, given what and this is me speaking selfishly here, given what I've had to been through, have had to go through last year losing Daniel, this year probably going to lose Yuki, though I don't want to, but let's just call it like we see it. I literally need a break. Like I need the universe to give me a break, and I can't handle anything else right now. Like Lewis needs to give us a
Yeah.
couple more years at the very least, because if I'm having to do like consecutive seasons of losing my favorite drivers, like I'm gonna not be able to be a fan anymore.
Me with Seb, and then all of
Yes.
these just like
Yes.
Kimi leaving. I was like, oh my
Yes.
gosh, why are people doing this to
I
me?
know.
And
Seb,
you
yeah, I
see
forgot
these
about Seb.
rookies come in, and you're like, I want to root for them so badly. But then you're like, but we had Daniel Ricciardo,
I miss the good old days.
the good old day. And we're always going to talk about the good old days because
We
like that's
always
where like
will.
our moments came from.
Exactly. Yeah, it like history lives within us. Like we have to keep that history alive for the next generation so that they remember those good moments. It's important.
Never forget the shoey.
Ex-
Never.
Exactly. Exactly. Kimmy has also kind of had a rough go of it recently, and we got a question about this, but I feel like I could talk about it now given his qualifying. Um, why do you think it feels like early in the season, Kimmy was like really good and like up there with George and was right alongside him, Q3s, obviously gets the podium in Canada, like the sprint pole in Miami. But it feels like recently he's just like struggled, and part of that's not his fault. He's had some engine issues, but qualifying has seemed a little bit more dicey. Why do you think he's kind of had like a little regression almost?
I personally don't think it's actually Kimi. I think
Okay.
it's the car because I believe in Barcelona, which was the race after Canada,
Yeah,
if I'm not
I think you're
mistaken,
right. Yeah.
they brought an upgrade package to that race. And that, I think they changed their, I believe they changed their suspension. And that was where we saw like a very, very distinct, like, okay, Kimi fell off. And I think that George obviously has experience in pretty bad Williams and Mercedes cars. So he's able to at least kind of keep up the look that, okay, he's doing decent. But also, George hadn't been on the podium for until today, a very, very long time. I think that because the car was kind of not in the place that Kimi had it at some point in time, his confidence suffered. And like
Mm,
those two things went hand in hand. Today, this weekend, we heard that Mercedes brought back that old suspension and it seemed to work like much better. So I think that, I mean, Kimi scored points today, which is yay. I think that's the next step into, okay, cool. He's going to gain his confidence back step by step. It's hard being a rookie, and especially when you're being compared to, there's years where we have one rookie, there's years where we have three rookies. Being compared to five rookies is a lot.
yep.
So I think that Kimi, he has a lot going for him. I do think that there is obviously these moments that where his confidence will suffer, but that's also expected. I do think that he's going to come back stronger from it. And I think that Mercedes understanding why the suspension works and the other suspension didn't is good. And I think that he's slowly getting into the grind of things, especially because apparently he wasn't supposed to tell people they reverted to the old suspension. And George was like, oh, you weren't supposed to say that. And he was like, it's fine.
He's, I think I think what's good about his, because I heard a lot of people last week after Spa be like, why did Mercedes rush him into this car? Why didn't they put him in a different car to get experience? And I understand that to an extent, but I also think like they're not putting like, okay, Kimmy, you have to perform this season or else you're out. Like he's allowed to make
Mhm.
mistakes. And everybody else from
Yeah.
the outside looking in is like, oh no, what's happening to Kimmy? But I think within the team dynamic, like he can have these off weeks. He can have times where he gets out in Q1 or Q2. Like I don't think the team itself is putting a bunch of pressure on him, which is good.
Yeah.
And he's going to have ups and downs. And as long as he just knows that that's okay, then I think actually being in the Mercedes is the best place for him because he's learning so quickly in a top team and not spending years like George in a back marker, like struggling to finish P17, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that everyone is so used to the Red Bull model or the, I guess now Alpine model of, okay, perform right now or you're out. And I
Exactly.
think that that has become the norm in so many ways. But Mercedes is one, trying not to make the same mistake they made in 2015 by not signing Max because they couldn't. And then also nurturing this driver who could be the next Max Verstappen or the first Kimi Antonelli. Like that's the
Yes.
thing. It's he is doing they're trying to make sure they have the driver that they want and they're able to mold him to their team and have him be the best driver that he can be for them rather than just being like race, do the thing. get points, get podiums, be your teammate who is now seventh year in Formula One, you don't, or sixth year in Formula One. I don't even remember anymore. But it's like, all right, just do you. It's only your first season. You're gonna have many more.
Yeah,
It's great.
exactly. Exactly. I think he's fine. I think he's going to be great. And I'm not worried about Kimmy. Like I feel fine about
Yeah, neither
his
am I.
future. Okay, just a quick couple shout outs. So Gabby gets into Q3, amazing. He did so well this weekend, like killed it. We'll get to his race, but
So well.
so awesome. Both of the V carbs, Liam and Isaac get into Q3. They're both killing it, doing amazing. We get to Q3, and I think many of us probably figured this is going to be a McLaren 1-2. Like it's either Lando or it's going to be Oscar, but like it's one of those two, you know? And then out of freaking nowhere, Charles Leclerc finds a way to get on pole position. I was like jaw on the floor shocked. Were you shocked?
Oh, same. 100% same. I don't think anyone saw that coming, and especially because like the commentators were kind of like alluding to it, like, ooh, there's rain and like more
Mhm.
tailwind. Like they were saying things, but you're like, okay, maybe the lap times will be slower, but the McLarens should still get this done because they do objectively have the fastest car.
Yes.
And then Charles Leclerc happens.
After like losing Yuki in Q1, Lewis in Q2, and then Charles Leclerc, that's my other favorite driver. I was like, thank you. I mean, it didn't really work out so well in the race. Like it's always funny to talk about qualifying when you know how it ends
Oof.
up in the race. But at the time, I was just like, okay, like this is amazing. As I in the title fight, like between Lando and Oscar, like I've been very like outspoken about this on this podcast. Like I'm more of an Oscar fan, so I tend to root for Oscar. But
Sure.
even with all this, I was like, Charles Leclerc needed this pole position. He needed this win. This like, I mean, it's a moral victory, but like, it was just good to see after all the struggles that Ferrari's had and like they had today. But like, just to at least get pole position, and he was shocked. Like he was so surprised, which I loved to
Yeah.
see. I was just like,
That
okay,
Mamma Mia really got me. I was like, oh my gosh. Okay.
that was so funny. I loved it. I loved it. And then obviously Oscar gets P2, Lando P3, George qualifies P4. Also, a special shout out to the Aston Martins, Fernando and Lance
Holy,
qualifying P5,
what did
P6.
they do to their car? I have no idea. I was like, okay, this is either Adrian Newey's voodoo has started working,
Yep.
which cool,
Yep.
or I don't know. There's something else going on behind the scenes where they've brought upgrades and something has like finally kicked into gear. I don't know, but shout out Fernando and Lance for qualifying on the third row because I don't think anyone expected them to be there.
No. And maybe it's track dependent. Like maybe their car is just like was particularly good on this circuit, or it's a combination of different factors. But and this is what I really liked about Formula One this season in particular is I feel like we've had, I mean, obviously McLaren, Ferrari, Merc, you know, you have Max in there, but for the most part, every weekend, like you don't know who's going to be in Q3. Like it could be an
Oh
Aston
yeah.
Martin, it could be an Alpine, it could be a V carb, it could be a Stake. Like you just don't know. It could be a Haas. And I think that's always fun. At least there's like some variation with who's getting into Q3 because we're not having a lot of
Yes.
variation in the winners.
Yes, I think that we're reaching that point, which we also saw in 2021, which is like the convergence
Yep.
of we're getting to the end of these regulations, and people have maybe not figured it out in the way that McLaren has figured it out, but at least they have more understanding where this car is at least working, and they're not fighting for a P15, P16. They're fighting for points, and everyone is fighting for points, which is beautiful to see. I think this is the first time, if I maybe read the stat a couple weeks ago, the first time that every single team on the grid has scored points, which is crazy. When you think about it, it's like, okay, 75 years of Formula One, and every single team has at least 1 point. And I think Franco's the only driver that currently doesn't have points, but
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
incredible.
Right. And he only came in, whatever, like he hasn't raced very many races this season either. So
Exactly.
yeah, it is pretty cool. Like every team is capable of scoring points, every driver is capable of scoring points, and that cannot
Hmm.
be said for every season. So like there's good things to watch across the grid for sure. Um,
Definitely.
okay. Anything else from qualifying before we get to the race?
I don't think so.
Okay. let's get to the race. Just a special shout out. It was Max's 200th race with Red Bull. So congratulations, Max. That's awesome. Okay, so we have the start, and Charles Leclerc gets away pretty cleanly, but Lando loses a few places at the start. He loses a place to George, he loses a place to Fernando. And I think
Mhm.
that was really like that was the moment in which that kind of decided the race in a lot of ways, if you think
Yeah.
about it. Like that, because that decided the strategy. That is just kind of how everything, I don't know, that kind of set the tone for the rest of the race. So
Yeah.
basically, it's, Charles Leclerc pulling ahead, Oscar right behind him. And it felt like the race was going to come down to Oscar versus Charles Leclerc. Like that really felt, and that's kind of
Yeah.
how the teams were playing it, like both on Oscar's side of the garage, Charles' side of the garage. It was like, we're worried about Charles Leclerc. And then Charles Leclerc is like, we're worried about Oscar. But didn't end up being the case. Now, there's a lot of questions we've gotten about, I feel like we should just talk about it now, about the decision, about the McLaren strategy decision and the split decision, right? Oscar's on a two-stop
Yeah.
race, Lando goes on a one-stop. And then also people mad about Ferrari and Ferrari's issues. I think they're two separate conversations.
Of
Let's
course.
let's start with McLaren because a lot of people tend to
Yes.
think that McLaren screwed over Oscar by Lando having the one stop, Oscar having the two stop. I don't think that's
Mhm.
the case, but I would love to hear your thoughts as our strategy tire queen. You share with us how you saw it play out.
I also do not think that McLaren screwed over Oscar. I think McLaren screwed over Oscar last year. They did not screw over Oscar this year. I think that there is a whole thing of, okay, like you said, Ferrari or Charles' side of the garage, Oscar's side of the garage are going based on each other. So Oscar's side of the garage calls that call to say, all right, we're going to pit to undercut Charles because that undercut is so, so strong in Hungary. And when they did that, it didn't work, which fine. But they called those drivers in outside of the pit window for a one stopper, but in the pit window for a two stopper. If they had forced Oscar to go on for that long on the hard tire, it would have been brutal. It would have been bad for him. But the good thing for Lando was even though he lost positions, he had the ability to react to both Lando or to Oscar and Charles. So he wasn't just going based on one of them or someone else. He was going based on both of them. So he was able to be like, all right, I can stay out for longer. I can kind of push this longer. I have the gap. The gap was fine. His times were fine. I can go ahead and do what I want to. And it's not like Lando's side and Oscar's side can go ahead and look at each other's things, but they're running completely separate races. They're competing for a championship against each other. They want to beat each other, even if they are a team. It's okay if Oscar is ahead. Lando's side of the garage, if Oscar has priority, Lando's side of the garage is going to do what they want to.
Yep, exactly. And I think the reality is, when you're the lead of the race or you're fighting for the lead of the race, which Charles Leclerc was, and then Oscar was, like you essentially have to make the first decision. Like you are kind of like
Yes.
leading the decision making process, and then other drivers are reacting to your decision. And for Lando,
Mm-hmm.
like they said on the what he said on the radio and kind of what was said afterwards, which is like it was a riskier decision probably to
It
do the one
was.
stop, but he had nothing to lose. And like it paid off for him and it worked for him for many different reasons.
Yeah.
One being, I think he was helped by the traffic late in the race because he
Yeah.
had that DRS to help kind of defend against
Mm-hmm.
Oscar. Hungary is not a very easy track to overtake on, so like that's part of it as well. Um, and there were some other factors, but it's not like it's easy
Mm-hmm.
in hindsight to make it to say,
Yes.
well, that was the right decision, that was the right strategy. Why didn't they do that? But in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
that's not always the case, and you don't know how it's going to turn out. And it could have very easily turned out
Right.
that Oscar could have sailed past Lando on lap
Mm-hmm.
whatever 67 and gotten the win. So I
Yeah.
don't think it was a McLaren screwing over Oscar. I think it just was the fact that the reality that they had to make a call. They made the call that they made. It didn't work out. Lando's side of the garage took a risk, and it paid off. And like,
Hmm.
that's just the
It
way that it
did.
goes sometimes.
Yeah, I think that there's also this whole thing of Oscar was on the optimal strategy. He was on the most optimal strategy that on paper, on simulations. But Lando ended up getting the faster strategy based on what was happening in front of him, which
Exactly.
that happens sometimes.
Yep, exactly. So listen, I think, like sports in general, but just especially right now, because there's this inter-team title fight, it gets emotions come out, right? If you're pro
Oh, for sure.
Oscar, you're gonna want the best for your driver. If you're pro Lando, the same thing. I can say as an Oscar fan, like I want Oscar to win the championship. Like I didn't think that McLaren was screwing over Oscar. Um, but I also can understand like biases come into play when you're analyzing a race, and it just happens. And I think they both had and also credit to Lando for making his tires last for 40 laps.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
you have to make like if you're given a strategy, you have to make it work because
yes,
Oscar was on what like almost 10 lap fresher tires or
I think it was like
15 lap fresher
13 or
tires by
something
the
like
end of
that.
the
Yeah,
race.
yeah,
Yeah. Some it's a good disparity between the tires. So Lando was not only preserving his tires, but able to defend on those tires with Oscar coming in on, and there was almost a moment there where
yeah.
like Oscar locks up going into turn one. It was like, oh my gosh, are we getting a George
I
Charles
know.
Fernando podium in this
Yeah,
moment? But you never know what's going to happen in a race. And it's like, okay, Oscar could have easily sailed past at some point. He had DRS for like 3 laps, but Lando was able to defend. Oscar wasn't able to get close enough. There were moments here and there because even with that tire differential, Oscar wasn't gaining on Lando or able to get close because of dirty air and a bunch of other factors, I assume. So, yeah, it's just that's how the race ended up going. And no one screwed over anyone. It's strategy. And yes, Lando probably got a little bit lucky, even though he fell back, what, 2 places. It was kind of lucky that
yes,
that strategy ended up working for him. But strategy involves luck.
yes, exactly. Sports involve luck. Like,
Sports,
it's
everything
just
involves
like,
luck.
yes, like I say that all the time. Like when, and again, we're both like, we've been sports fans of many different sports for like our whole lives, basically. And so it's like the
Yeah.
amount of games that like my team has won because it's just like they got super lucky. It's like infinite. And like same probably
Yeah.
for teams that, it's just how it goes. I was also gonna
Less
say,
so for Detroit teams, but yes.
yeah, I know. A little spoiled here with the Chief stuff, but I was also going to say too, like Oscar's lockup. I think it was the second to last lap. When he's trying to make that
Yeah.
overtake. Like in hindsight, maybe he should have waited another like for the final lap to make the move. But
Hmm.
like again, it's just how it goes. And I think the reality is
Yeah.
like they're going to fight down to the wire. Like I believe that.
Yeah.
I think it's going to come down to the final race. I think it's going to be back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And at this point, I am sitting back and I'm just going to enjoy the show. Like I'm just going to enjoy what happens,
Yes.
and we all should just enjoy what happens, and it's going to go back and forth.
Yeah, and I think people are like of the mindset just because of how we've seen the title battle shake out over the last probably 4 years where it's like one team driver for one team versus a driver from another team. It's not that same team rivalry battle for a championship. McLaren is not going to choose a number one driver. They're not going to do that thing because it's going to one come off really obvious if they're favoring someone, but then also they want to maximize points. They want those 1-2s. They want to do everything they possibly can to help both of their drivers win the championship because either way they're going to win the constructors championship. But they're not going to like stop them from fighting. We're going to see moments probably in the last 10 races that are going to be really really interesting, let's say that. But I do think it's going to come down to the final race, but it's going to be the best thing ever because that's when like the rivalry is going to get great and it's going to continue on for how many ever years because these two are going to be teammates for a while.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I don't know. I just think I can't even, I was going to say something and now I forgot, I forgot what I was going to say. But the the point is that I think it's going to be, I was going to say that, there's been a lot of like talk over the course of the season so far about like team orders or like there's certain races where people are like they should have given team orders, and like there's no team orders. There's no team orders happening. like there's just not it's just not going to happen because they have the constructors title locked up. Like nobody is touching their constructors title, so they can let the drivers fight it out on track and like see what happens. But and that's just how it's going to be. They're going to fight, and they've done a good job of that, except for Canada. They have fought clean, like they have fought well, and
Yeah.
they're both fine. Like I don't think this is a Nico Rosberg Lewis Hamilton situation. I don't think it's going to become that.
Nothing
Like
will ever be.
no, nothing will ever be, and like it's going to be fine. I think it's all going to be fine. Um, okay, let's talk about Charles Leclerc and Ferrari because he
My
was
heart.
not happy at all. He has the lead of the race, and then was after his second pit stop that everything kind of like fell apart. We now know he had a
Mhm.
chassis problem that he like got on lap 40, which I think that was really
Mhm.
affecting his performance. But then I've also seen a lot of people be like, Ferrari screwed over Charles Leclerc. I I don't really see that, but if you do, tell me if you see something.
I don't think so either. So I think that Ferrari is dealing with a billion car issues. They brought a new suspension this week that was supposed to help them with basically that whole ride height problem that they had related to like the floor, the plank wearing out too much, which I think is a huge thing that they're trying to mitigate as much as possible. And I think that they probably did a bunch of things that culminated in one, Lewis having to lift and coast for a majority of the race. And then also Charles experiencing these issues after his second pit stop. They probably had to like, or I think George was yapping about this during his post race interviews, but like, oh, they had to turn down his engine mode. They had to do something with his tires. They had to make said changes to ensure that their car wasn't illegal. And I
Mm.
think that Ferrari is like towing this line. And I even before George said this, I was like, it's really jarring to see how different the car was from one lap to another after Charles pit. And I think it was really clear that it had to do with changes that the team had to make in that situation to ensure that this car is legal and we are able to not get disqualified and get the points that we need. So I think that's where we're at right now. Ferrari's nursing a lot of problems, and it is coming to the detriment of their drivers.
Yeah, I was also going to say too, Charles Leclerc, that whole like essential like a rant on the radio. It was like the
Yeah.
longest radio message I've ever seen. It was like scrolling
Same.
like a teleprompter. I was like, it's going to keep on going.
Someone said that they should do the Star Wars scroll with that
Yes,
whole thing. It
yes,
would have been, I would
yes.
have been like, oh my God.
That would have been so funny. But so and Charles Leclerc is an emotional guy on the radio, right? Like he is like the counter to Oscar. He's gonna rant, he's gonna say things, he's gonna question things. But the reality is, like, he doesn't really know what's going on outside of the car. I think he even said that in his post-race interview. Like, I didn't know what was happening outside of the car and like what
Yeah.
was going on. So like I was reacting because I didn't have all the information. And that's often how it goes with Formula One drivers. Like they're emotionally
Yeah.
reacting in the moment, but they don't have the full picture because they're in the car. So I think, again, was it like I mean, it wasn't the best race from them, but to your point, they were having to deal with other issues. And I think, yeah, it sucks he didn't even get on the podium, but like there's, I don't know, bigger problems that they're having to deal with. And to get fourth
I
and
think so.
points is like damage limitation, I suppose. And, I'm going as a Charles Leclerc fan. I'm leaving this weekend just happy he got pole position. Like, that's fun. And
That is fun.
that's
I
fun.
agree. As a also Charles Leclerc fan, I'm like, okay, this is like a little like ray of sunshine
Yes, it
in
was just
this
like
like
a little
really, really
treat.
dark weekend.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, exactly. And I'm honestly like, I'm just not retiring this season, but I'm just kind of like, this season is kind of a wash. Like, let's have some fun
Yeah.
moments. Would I love to see a win? Sure. Would I love to see more podiums? Yes.
Yeah.
But like, my focus is on 2026. And if 2026 goes terribly, then I'm like, then I'm done. But like, I'm just like, I'm just hoping.
Next year's our year. Next year's our
Yes,
year.
yes, exactly, exactly. That's what I'm telling myself. So anyway, I think, and again, it goes back to my point before about McLaren, like emotions coming up. And if you're a fan of the driver, you're like, like, what's going on? But like, I think it's important to like step back and see that there's a lot of other things at play, a lot of other things happening, and um, I don't think it was Ferrari like making a bunch of mistakes that hurt Charles Leclerc's performance.
Yeah. I do like I mean, the car is not great. That
Yes,
is reality of the situation. This was the first weekend that Lewis didn't score points all year,
I
and
know.
that makes me sad because that's another record that they have taken away from Lewis Hamilton. But it's okay. Sometimes we'll say it's okay, Ferrari. Next year, you
Yes.
give us the
Next, yeah,
title, and everything is fine.
yeah.
But
You're on a
will
tight
they?
leash. You're on a tight leash right
Yeah.
now, and I'm gonna give you like one more chance. And if you
Yeah,
don't,
it's like it's toxic relationship
yes,
energy
you're
of
so
like
right.
I'm gonna I'm going back to you because I love you so much.
And that's how I feel about all these like Formula One, like with Daniel, it's like, come back again. Yeah, sure, keep coming back, even though it's like the worst thing ever. But like, it's just, yeah, you just keep going back because it makes you
Yeah,
feel, I don't know. I don't know. It's all complicated.
it makes you feel alive.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess so. Um, Okay, some other things I wanted to just quickly touch on. So the Lewis and Max little moment that happened when they were battling each other, no penalty,
Mhm.
nothing really. But that was, I mean, I actually said this before it was said on the Sky Sports broadcast, but I was like, really, we're having Lewis and Max fighting for like whatever it was at that point, like P13. Like this is not what we want. Like at least for me, like I'm like this is how far we've fallen, in just a handful of
Oh
years.
yeah, literally 4 years and we have fallen from P1, P2 to whatever they were fighting for. I'm like, are you serious right now? Like I don't want that. I want both of these incredible drivers, these world champions in a good car and racing because they're like fighting for something that means so much more and not just like oh, I'm trying to like get up into the points kind of
Yeah,
vibes.
exactly. I know. It was fun seeing Max, especially early on in the race, kind of battle through the field, like pass people, because he is so good at like
Oh yeah.
passing, and it's fun to see him actually race and get through the field. But it felt like he was also just a big afterthought this race. Like he was not a
Yeah.
focal point, and I like Max. I wouldn't say I'm not like a fan of. He's not one of my favorite drivers, but I'm like,
Mhm.
it's not a great race when Max is not fighting for like a top position or podium spot. You want the best performing at their best.
Yes, definitely. I think that Max, the overtakes that he did make, I love how he didn't really do them on like with DRS or anything. He was making them like this one corner that it was exactly where I think he overtook Lewis, where it was so precise and it's like no one would actually do that, but Max would do it, and he makes it look so clean. And I always appreciate his overtakes because they feel really tactical,
Yes.
and I I'm also like not the biggest Max fan in the world, but I think I have slowly become like started become uh been appreciating his driving so much more, especially when he's not just like at
Me
the
too.
front.
Yep.
I think like last year Brazil was like the testament of that, but
Yep.
slowly but surely I'm like, oh my gosh, like seeing him like really wrestle with this car and be really annoyed with it makes me sad. Like I want to see him in a car that he can drive. And we've seen Max start like what P16 or like at the complete back of the grid and come and win a race. We don't need to see that every single time, but to see him kind of work his way up, it feels like okay, at least he's doing something.
Yes, yes, exactly. Exactly. So we'll have to wait to see. I think he said this week that he doesn't think he's going to win another race this season. I'm like, I feel like I can
Which is
never count out
crazy.
Max Verstappen. Like, there's always some race that he finds a way to win. So I don't know if that's true, but we'll have to wait to see how he does the rest of the year. I'll be very curious to see how he finishes out the season. We also had the George and Charles Leclerc battle, where I
Ooh.
mean, Charlotte. This was at the time when Charles Leclerc was pissed beyond belief. Like he was
Yeah.
about to just, I don't know what, but like you could just tell that he was not a happy guy and was just about to
Yep.
like end it for both of them. Like he was about to just like DNF and take George out with him and be like, I'm done. He
Yeah.
did get a 5-second penalty, but that was like George was not happy.
Yeah. I mean, I think the penalty, driving erratically, was the correct description for that
Me
penalty.
too.
He was weaving on the street. He was moving under braking. He was doing all those things. And I'm like, okay, I get when you're angry and driving emotionally. I have definitely been like at the wheel when I was like sad or like annoyed or something. But and like when you're driving a Formula One car, it seems 10 times more dangerous, if not a billion times more dangerous. So, yeah, that was a fair penalty. I do think, like, again, the hindsight where he was like in his press conference, you could see he was like kind of in shambles, where he's like, what have I done? Like, oh my gosh. But I still think that, like, okay, you're going to be emotional at those points in time. And it was not, it was a justified penalty because he did make a mistake. But it was also like, all right, I'm not surprised that he did
Yes,
that.
exactly. I'm not surprised. It didn't end up hurting his race. Like he finished fourth regardless of the penalty, so it wasn't a
Yeah.
big deal. But it was just kind of, there are certain drivers on the grid who are, no matter what's going on, are pretty cool, calm, and collected. Oscar being one of them. And then there's some drivers, Charles Leclerc, Max, Yuki, whoever, who just, when things are going their way, they're like, they see red and they're just like, ah. And oftentimes it's at George's expense because George pissed off
Yeah.
Max and Max yeeted into him. And then
Yeah.
Max, or
Always at the scene of the crime,
yeah, George is just
always.
always involved in some way, shape, or form. But um, yeah, very much
It's
that
him
was a
or Fernando.
yes, yeah. Yep. Yep, that's a good point. So then we talk about this, but the Lando Oscar battle for the win, came down to the final few laps, which is always fun. It's always fun when you do get a close battle for the lead at the very end of the race,
Yeah.
but wasn't to be for Oscar. Lando gets the win, cuts that
It
lead.
also showed it also showed that the strategy was basically equal.
Yeah,
Like Oscar was able to catch Lando by the end of the race. It was just that Lando had track position on Oscar and was able to defend and had clean air. The strategy was pretty equal. I
yeah,
will
that's a
say
great
that.
point. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, there were just a couple little factors that made the difference, but like ultimately, it was
Mhm.
a coin flip. I think what as I think
Yeah.
we can all say, like it really was a coin flip. Um, yeah. So I can't remember. I think is it down now to 9 points? Is Oscar's lead
To
in the
9 points.
championship? 9 points, which is nothing. I mean, that's nothing. So
Nothing.
like it's I don't know. I'm very excited. I think we all need. I shouldn't speak for everybody, but like I'm excited for this break. I think it's good to have a bit of a break. We can all kind of just like reset, take a deep breath,
Yes.
relax. But these last 10 races are going to be really exciting. And I don't know. I was trying to think about like who I felt like has the upper hand on the tracks that we're going to. Like, is it are they more Oscar friendly tracks or are they more Lando friendly tracks? And I think there are some tracks that I feel definitely favor Oscar. Like I think Baku was a race last year where I think he won that race, and
Yes,
he
he
seemed to
did.
perform super well there.
Yeah.
But then there's some other places where I think Lando might have the upper hand, like Zandvoort potentially. So I don't know.
Singapore.
I'm really excited to see how it shakes out. And there's a variety of like we're going to a variety of different places, like street tracks, more traditional tracks, like all over I mean, we're going to be in Europe, Asia. Where else are we going?
North
U.S.,
America. Back
South America.
Dakota.
Yeah, like we're going everywhere. Um,
Yeah.
so I feel like it's going to be. I'm very, very excited to see what happens. I think everybody is, but like
Me
it's going to
too.
be so fun.
I'm genuinely so excited. I think that we also haven't seen like a very close title battle like this since even 2021. There were like, I don't think the gap was, maybe it was, but at some point it was like Lewis had to win every single race
He
in
came
order to
back.
keep the, yeah,
Yeah,
where he had to win every single race. And I think it was like 4 or 5 races in a row to make that Abu Dhabi battle like they were equal on points going into it. And he did. And that's ridiculous when you think about it. It's like he had to be so locked in, and he locked in like like I'm thinking Brazil specifically, where it's like, okay, he literally had to do XYZ and he did it. And then I'm like, okay, one of these two, whether it's Lando or Oscar, whoever is ahead behind, they're going to need to lock in and then other person, like kind of mind games. I feel like there's going to be some mind games going on, and I hope there are because it just
I
makes it a
I
little bit
agree.
more, adds an extra like level of okay, who's actually like mentally like world champion mentality.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how that kind of shakes out. Um, Wanted to just give also a shout out. So Gabby finishes P6. Amazing. Like fantastic result for
Yay!
him. Stake is like the real deal. I mean, they're not like they are competitive, which is fun to see. Um,
Which is
Alonso,
crazy to see given last year.
I know, I know. Alonso P5, like we love to see it. I think Lance P7, so fantastic.
Seven.
Liam gets points. I think Kimmy was the final
Mhm.
point scorer. So a lot of variety in the points this weekend, which was fun to see. Um, okay, I have the big question for you, which is if you had to bet today, who's going to win the Drivers' Championship? Who are you putting your money on?
Oh,
Oscar, Orlando?
I mean, I'm biased. I
Try
am
to
an
try to
Oscar
try to not
fan.
be biased. Try to take yourself out of it.
I still think I would say Oscar. I think that he, like, especially on how he responded on the radio today, of like, okay, we're just gonna like minimize the damage here, especially in terms of, okay, if I'm going to be like, if Lando is going to go ahead of me, I still need to finish P2. I need to be on fresher tires to ensure that I can pass Charles and be in P2 to minimize that gap because the difference of finishing P2 versus P3 would have been bad, and George would have also probably overtaken him as well. So I think that mentally, I think that Oscar has the upper hand because he has that like no nonsense, I'm walking in kind of mentality. But I don't know. It really depends. I think that it could really be anything because Oscar obviously third year in Formula One versus Lando since 2019.
Yeah.
That many years in Formula One is a long time. It's
Yeah.
a very, very long time. How many years is it? 19, 20,
Six. I think it's his sixth season.
7.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Because he had 2 years with Carlos,
Yeah.
2 years with Daniel, and this is his. Yeah. Yeah. You're right. Third year with Oscar.
Yeah. Crazy. Like he's been here for so long.
Yeah. I know. And he's still so young, which is so crazy.
Yeah.
Um, I know. I feel the same way. I think if I had to bet money on it, I would bet I bet Oscar. I would bet Oscar.
Mhm.
But I really think it's like right now, I think it's like 51-49%. Like I think it is
Yeah.
very, very close. And I think it's going to come down to a couple
It
of things. As
is.
you said, will Lando's experience put him ahead because he has those, he's been in F1 longer. Like he is just again, every year that you have under your belt, you're just learning more about what it takes to win and perform in every kind of situation. And so that might end up being the difference. Will Oscar's kind of like just down to business? He doesn't allow himself to get too high or too low, which I think is like a
Yes.
really good place to be if you're trying to win a championship because
Hmm.
you stay more steady. Um,
Yeah.
will that end up being the difference? Like there's just so many little factors that come into play. And
Hmm.
I said this from the beginning, and this is not like a revolutionary idea, but I really do feel like it's not so much the driver that's going to win the most amount of races. I think it's the driver who makes the least amount of mistakes that's going to win the
Yes,
championship.
agree.
And I think if it's not your day and you don't win the race, but you are able to get that P2 rather than the P4 or P5, like that's going to make the difference in your season. Um, and so I think for the last 10 races, it's like who's going to make the least amount of mistakes and be the most consistent over the course of the 10 races.
I completely agree. I think that one thing I always think about is Australia and the fact that at that moment that Oscar had and then like pulled himself out of the grass, got back into the points, and you're like, okay, that was like a moment that it showed some kind of like fight, which I appreciated. And I think that Lando has obviously had his moments, very dominant race wins
Yeah.
this season, but then there's also like moments like Canada where you're like, oof. Even last week, that the fact that he was obviously catching, and he made a couple of mistakes that made like his the gap to Oscar kind of dwindle a little bit. Those things where you're like, okay, I think that's also what I look at is like who is making the least mistakes, and maybe Lando will go, and he did it last season too, where he made some mistakes against Max, but will Lando minimize his mistakes or can Oscar capitalize on Lando's mistakes?
Yep.
Is the real question.
I completely agree. Yeah. I think, I don't know, it's just going to be so interesting to see how it shakes out. Like,
I know.
I'm so excited to see.
I'm
I'm
so
so excited
excited.
to see. I'm so excited. Um, okay. We'll get to some of the questions. We kind of answered a lot of the questions. A lot of people asked about the McLaren stuff and the strategy decision, and then also the Charles Leclerc Ferrari thing. So we kind of covered a lot of it. But okay. Favorite race of the season so far?
Ooh, oh my gosh. I I think I have to maybe again, so biased. I have to say Canada. I was there. It was so fun to be there. Um, seeing I saw the moment, the Oscar Lando moment in front of my face, and I was like actually so scared because that's not a moment you ever want to see. But I think that podium was chef's kiss. I love
Oh,
that
it was
podium.
fantastic.
Kimmy's first podium.
You also were the best friend, and you sent me a video of Yuki pre-race, which was
Yes, I
really
did. I
nice.
had to.
Which is so nice. I love when your friends just like see you and like understand you, and you did that for me. It felt nice. I think I would say, was it Barcelona that was really chaotic? Um, with like
I think
the
so.
when like there was a bunch of restarts. Yeah, because was that the race where Max ran
Hmm.
into George?
I think
I
so.
think
Yeah,
it
yeah, yeah.
was. I think that was maybe one of my favorite races. Australia was great. I loved because of
Australia
the
was great.
rain and everything. And to your point about Oscar like fighting back and getting into the points, like that might be the difference in him winning a championship and
Yeah.
not. Like it could come down to those
I
points.
I love when battle is that close because I always think about the old point system where it's just like 10 to 1,
Hmm.
but the gaps are slightly wider, but you can still like just 1 point, even letting go of the fastest lap point. 1 point can be the difference between you winning a championship and you not winning a championship. It's happened so many times. Lewis could have like maybe 12 world championships. Fernando Alonso could have like 7 world championships. 1 point is all like can always make a difference. And I think that that is the most fun thing in the world.
Yes, yes. This is not a question. Well, I guess it is a question, sort of, from our friend Jess. She said, Neha, please,
Aw.
what is it like being so slay?
Aw. Hi, Jess. Um, I don't know how to
Tell
answer
us.
that
Tell
question.
us. You are the coolest. You are the best.
I I don't know.
You can
Because
you
she's
can get back
also
to
so
us. I
slay.
know. I know.
She's
All
like
the
Jess
F1
is also
girlies.
like yeah, everyone that I think that I have ever interacted with in the F1 space is like the coolest person in the world and everyone's doing something different and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, we're all just like love this thing together and we're all just coexisting, but it's like so beautiful and wonderful."
I completely agree. It's the best. It's the best part of it all. Okay. Next question. Who has been the most underrated driver this season so far in your eyes?
Ooh, I don't think underrated, but like Isaac's been like the only driver to never like or to always get out of Q1. He's been doing amazing. Gabby's kind of finding his footing as well. Like the rookies are kind of like or not even kind of, they're definitely showing up. And even Ollie has made his fair share of mistakes, but he's still able to get into the points and it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful.
I know they're all doing so well, and it's so fun to see, especially considering the years we've had of rookies maybe struggling a little bit more or like having more
Mhm.
issues. I mean, I think Isaac is kind of, I don't even know that he's underrated. I feel like he's properly, I think everyone is like recognizing how great he's been. I think like a Nico Hulkenberg, obviously getting a podium, it's like
Yeah.
that's incredible. I honestly, I mean, Alex Albon has, but is that
Yes.
underrated? Like, I don't know that it's underrated at at this point. You know, um, there's just been a lot of people that have stepped up. Like, I will
Yes.
say, I think I underestimated Alex going into this season, going up
Same.
against Carlos. I think I felt like, oh gosh, is this going to be kind of dicey for Alex? But he has like shown, he's showed up every single weekend, at least for the most part, and like
Yes.
has really been an amazing driver.
I completely agree. I'm such an Alex fan, and I think that the way that he has performed this season, I mean, Carlos is obviously still getting to grips with this car, but it's majority Alex who has Williams in P5 right now in the constructors. And that's crazy, but also so beautiful to see because it's been his team for so many seasons now. I think fourth seasons now, where I'm like, okay, cool. Like we're making progress, we're doing good, we're like making steps forward. And it's obviously showing that he is a key element in making this team better.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it also goes to show too, like with Carlos and with Lewis and whoever, it's hard to change teams. It's hard. Like you can be a great driver and you make a change. I mean, we've seen it with Daniel, other people in Formula One. Like it's not it's just because you do well at one team doesn't mean you're gonna like it's gonna translate to a different team or it's gonna be easy right away. Like
Mhm.
it's so dependent on so many factors. And I think Carlos will find his way, but like I'm just proud to see Alex like hold his own and I don't know, lead the team forward. I think it's great. Um,
Yeah.
okay, last question. Predict which race of the next 10 will be the best.
Ooh, again, maybe biased. Coda. I love Coda so much. And it's like a good racetrack.
The
It's the
best track.
best parts of so many racing tracks, like Bud in India and the S's and like Brazil. It's just so good. It's the best. I love that circuit. I feel like Vegas has also given us, as much as people want to hate on Vegas,
It's been a
has given
great
us some
track.
great races.
Yes, I think Vegas is. I was gonna say Vegas. Well, I was gonna say Brazil, but I feel like Brazil is kind of like a
Oh
cop out
yeah.
answer. Like,
Brazil will always,
yes,
yeah.
exactly. Like it's always gonna deliver. But Vegas is great. Like Vegas is a great track and a lot of overtaking. Like it's a really good one. And I'm just gonna throw out Monza. I don't know what
Ooh.
it's gonna give us, but I feel like there's always something kind of crazy can happen at Monza. We've seen it before. So like
Mhm.
I'm putting I think that might be a fun
Fingers
one, but
crossed.
fingers crossed. I would love to see a non like McLaren, Red Bull, Merc, even Ferrari. I would love to see like a midfield team get a win at some point.
Yes.
Don't know
I
where,
think
don't know
that if
how.
we had that like Esteban Ocon like Hungary
Yep.
2021 moment or like a Pierre Gasly
Yep,
Monza 2020 moment, we need to see that this season. I
we
think
do.
we desperately need it this season. And you know what? I'm manifesting that a Yuki podium
Thank you. I was just gonna
because
say
I
that.
do think yeah, that will happen. I'm convinced it's going to happen.
Please.
I also, I think you mentioned this earlier. I think the championship fight is going to go down to Abu Dhabi, and I hope it does because they always like a night race, final showdown kind of vibe. Like, oh, I want that so badly for us.
We need it. We need it. We need it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want it to be like every race, just like banger, 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 like great stuff happening every single race. That's what we deserve. That's what we all deserve as F1
Yeah,
fans.
we
So
do. And like
I'm
last
pumped.
race was kind of boring. This race until like or until the last couple laps,
Yes.
kind of
Yep,
boring.
I
It's like,
agree.
okay, where's the action? Give me a little bit
Yes.
more action. We're seeing a little bit more, or Pirelli's bringing a couple of different tires to different races. So hopefully that kind of adds a little bit of spice in there. I don't know. There's a couple of factors that I think could add that little bit of extra. Like chaos is probably the wrong word, but we need spice.
Yeah, we need
Spice is always
spice.
good.
Yes, we
Yeah,
and not just not just at the top. We need spice kind of all the way down the grid. Like we
everywhere.
need lots of different things to happen. Yeah. This is us just manifesting, putting out the energy, and we'll have to wait to see what
Yes.
happens. But I'm pumped.
Yeah, I'm gonna light my manifestation candle that
Yes.
I have here.
I
Yes.
have a Charles Leclerc one back here. Actually, you can see it right there. Oh,
Oh my gosh.
I can't
Our
point to it.
Ferrari teammates,
Yep, yep.
please do good.
And I have the shoey too, painting. I don't know if you
Oh,
can see
of
it.
course.
Um,
Oh,
we need one of those too. Okay, anything else from this
yes.
race weekend that we need to touch on? Anything else you want to talk about?
I don't think
I feel
so.
like
I
we
feel like
covered
it
most of
was
it.
a lot happened, but at the same time it felt like it was
Yeah.
pretty standard
Yep.
Ferrari, McLaren doing their normal things.
Yep. I completely agree. I think, this break's going to be good. Just a little bit of a
Yes.
scheduling update. We mentioned this, I think, on a previous episode, but we are taking a bit of a break, podcast break. Hannah's out of town. I'm going to be out of town for a bit. So we will be taking a 2 week break and we'll be back on August 25th with a new episode. So While the F1 drivers are taking a break, we're also taking a break. I hope everybody takes a break. Just, touch some grass, enjoy some sunshine, just like,
Yeah, you deserve it.
exactly. We all deserve it. So yeah, just a bit of a break, but we'll be back soon. Um, Neha, thank you so much for being here, for talking Formula One strategy, all the things. You're just the best. Can you
Always.
please tell everyone where they can find you, watch your stuff, everything, because you make fantastic content?
I'm on Instagram and TikTok at Neha Sridhar. I post, yeah, like Zoe said, a lot of like technical informational stuff as well as my little race recaps that I love doing, which is always so much fun. But yeah, that's kind of me.
Yes, you should go watch her TikTok if you haven't, of her wearing Max Verstappen's race suit and helmet, which is freaking
I'm
awesome.
still not over that.
So freaking cool. Well, I think you know how we end our show, or I hope you know how we end our show.
Of
Um,
course I do.
so if you wouldn't mind ending it for us whenever you are ready.
Yes, of course. Thanks for listening and enchanté.